Good afternoon. Welcome to the Beeck Center's 10th anniversary, a decade of impact, the Beeck Center at 10. Before we start, may I please ask everyone to silence your cell phones? Thank you. We are thrilled to welcome you all to celebrate the Center's accomplishments over the last 10 years. And we look forward to an exciting evening, hearing from some thoughtful and inspiring individuals from across the civic technology ecosystem tonight. My name is Trinisa Fung, and I am a student analyst at the Beeck Center, currently working at the Digital Service Network team. This semester, I am helping support the team and managing the Digital Service Network Resource Library in curating resources and documenting the approaches used by government practitioners across the public sector at all levels of government to improve service delivery to residents. At Georgetown, I'm working towards my Master of Public Policy at the McCourt School, intending to enter the field of civic technology after I graduate. Thank you. My work at the Beeck Center has been incredibly valuable in helping me realize that it takes a community of invested, passionate people to enable governments to carry out policies and practices in today's digital world that center the true needs of users and residents. Serving as a student analyst on the Digital Service Network team has only solidified my passion for pursuing a career that allows me to be at the forefront of public policy and government digital transformation. And I'm excited and honored to be a part of this vibrant, growing community. But let's come back to the present and focus on this momentous evening. The Beeck Center would not be here today if it wasn't for the support of the entire Georgetown community. I'm extremely honored to introduce Georgetown University President John DeGioia, who has been invaluable to our work and extremely supportive of the Beeck Center's mission these past 10 years. Please join me in welcoming to the podium President DeGioia.
Thank you very much, Trinisha. Very kind of you. An honor to be with all of you this evening. It's wonderful to be together and have this opportunity to celebrate the 10th anniversary of our Beeck Center for Social Impact and Innovation, as we recognize the role it plays here at Georgetown and the importance of its work here in our nation's capital, as well as the impact that it has throughout the world. Over these 10 years, our colleagues at the Beeck Center have brought a vibrant vision for what an initiative focused at the intersection of data, design, technology, and policy can be. Colleagues, students, and partners have engaged in some of the most pressing issues facing our local, national, and global communities. In collaboration with leading experts in public service, civic technology, philanthropy, other aspects of civil society, over this decade, the Beeck Center has led 23 projects that have reached over 30 states, territories, and localities across our country. This is incredible impact. And at the core of the Beeck Center's mission is engagement, a commitment to pursuing meaningful policy solutions, to providing immersive learning experiences for our students, and to contributing to equitable social change for the common good. As we enter this next decade and celebrate all that the Beeck Center has accomplished, I wish to express my gratitude to Lynn Overman for her leadership in this moment, all of our past executive directors, including Corey Zarek, who is here with us this evening. We could not do this work without the kind of leadership that you have all provided over the course of this decade. And we could not do this work, and we would not be here this evening without the leadership and vision of Alberto and Olga Maria Beck. Their engagement has enabled us to deepen our university's commitment to social impact and innovation, to make the kinds of contributions that only Georgetown, with our distinctive strengths and characteristics, can make. And Alberto and Olga Maria, we want to thank you for your presence here tonight, for all that you have so generously given to Georgetown over these many years for what you make possible for us as a university community. You have enabled us to be a university in new ways, and we could not be more grateful. I also wish to thank so many who have supported the Beeck Center, especially the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Ballmer Group, the Rockefeller Foundation, for their engagement as we pursue this work. I also know what it has meant over the course of this past decade for our provost, Bob Groves, to have been a part of all of this and to share in the vision and the execution of this work. And to everyone here this evening, I want to thank you for your presence as we celebrate this important milestone. And I now have the pleasure to welcome Alberto Beeck to share a few reflections. And I want to thank you all again for being here.
Thank you, Jack, for your very kind words, and thank you to all of you for being here with us. It's hard to believe that it's been 10 years. Rather than giving a formal speech, I wanted to share with you what was the journey like. Since I first met my wife, Olga Maria, she was always involved, and by the way, she came to Georgetown. She was always involved in educational-related activities. And I grew up in Peru, and my dad was a businessman, but also a social entrepreneur before the word social entrepreneur was invented. He started what's today the largest technical institute in the country. And I got involved in a number of different things, whether it was with Ashoka, with the income sharing agreement platform, started the Latin American board here at Georgetown University. I had this crazy idea of starting a TV program in Colombia to highlight in a fun and engaging way the work of social impact leaders. I didn't know anything about TV programming. And it ran for 2 years. It was very successful from a viewership point of view, 4 million viewers every season, but it was not sustainable. So in 2010, Olga Maria and I thought about what would be the best way of maximizing our impact and giving back to society in the context of our capabilities and limitations. And we realized that despite the fact that we had been working with the sector, in the sector, we really didn't know the answer to that question. So we went to my brother-in-law, who is here with us today, Carl Muñana. Carl had left a very successful career in investment banking at JP Morgan to dedicate himself to this sector and to this question. So with him, we literally spent 2 years going around the world, meeting fascinating people, learning, going to way too many conferences. After the second conference, it was like rewind and repeat. And at the end, we realized, or we concluded the best way of maximizing our impact was to create a center that would have a certain strategic direction, but it would be experimental, with the main objective to maximize impact, to attract the brightest minds, and that it would aim for sustainability. We were not sure whether to set up the center independently or inside our university, but we concluded that we wanted to be close to or in touch with the future leaders, i.e. the students, with thought leaders, i.e. faculty and practitioners, attract the best minds, practitioners, that it would give us credibility and that would amplify our voice as well. The decision on Georgetown was the easiest one. Not only because Olga Maria had gone to Georgetown, she had given me the pink Kool-Aid, I had drunk it. We had done a number of things with Georgetown and at Georgetown, but how many universities are there in the world that have at their core values, giving back to society, and purpose? So the decision was clear, come to Georgetown. We debated also whether to name it or not. Our initial inclination was not to name it. We're low-key people, but we realized that by naming it, it really committed us at a different level. So we came to Georgetown, and Georgetown, being very intentional and discerning, told us, well, that sounds great, but we need to decide whether, and we had to evaluate this and decide whether this fits our strategic direction and priorities. So Olga Maria said, well, we have met all these amazing impact organizations in our learning process. Why don't we connect them to Georgetown students? And that's how we started GU Impacts. GU Impacts was a program that connected undergraduate and graduate students from Georgetown with these amazing impact organizations in different parts of the world. Hundreds of students came through that program. It was very immersive, very high touch, working side by side with these organizations. That program has been since spun off from the center and it's been supported by another foundation with a slightly different focus. When we were going around meeting all these different interesting people, we kept asking the question, who would be the ideal person to lead it? And almost everybody would tell us Sonal Shah. Sonal Shah, who at that time was heading up the White House Office of Social Impact and Citizen Participation. But then they would tell us, there's no way you'll be able to get her. I'm an entrepreneur, so I called Sonal and immediate chemistry, and Sonal had immediate chemistry with Georgetown. And then with Sonal, we started experimenting. She was our first executive director. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us because she had prior commitments, but she was our first executive director, and with her, we threw so many things against the wall. Alberto laughs about it. He was there. We tried social entrepreneurship, impact investing, impact bonds, pay for success, blockchain, modernizing Congress. As we were doing this, and as we became part of Tech and Society, we realized that public interest technology and civic tech had an inordinate capacity to impact. So we started shifting our strategy. And when Corey, welcome Corey, joined us, Corey was a Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the country, and she joined us initially as a fellow. We continued shifting our strategy. And then when Corey became the executive director, we completed that shift. And now with Lynn, we have taken it to a completely different level, and Aaron also helped in that transition. So where we are today, we're very happy. We're very happy with the impact that we're having. Lynn doesn't allow me to say this in a formal venue, but since we are amongst friends, we need to confirm this information. But by improving the delivery of benefits and services, creating networks, and sharing best practices, we believe that we have touched directly or indirectly hundreds of millions of people. Lynn also says that by making the delivery of benefits and services effective, you can reduce the poverty rate in this country by more than 30%. It is huge. So super excited where we are. Obviously, we want to grow, continue doing what we're doing and grow, continue experimenting. We have a couple of strategic goals. One is to touch many more students at Georgetown. With GU Impacts, we did touch a lot of students. Currently, we have, last year, I think we had 30 plus students working with our fellows, working with our team. But we want to be able to touch hundreds of students by showing them the different ways that they can have impact in the world. And another strategic goal, challenge, aspiration, is to share with other organizations in other parts of the world. Our focus has been primarily domestic. Share our networks, our best practices, our knowledge. We have started doing that with European actors. practitioners in Europe. We have had conversations with governments in Latin America. We're having conversations with the State Department, so if we can see if we can cover several governments at the same time. So with that, I want to give thanks to all the people that have made this possible, starting with you, Jack. Thank you for your strategic leadership, believing in this crazy project. And Bob Gross, Provost Gross, thank you for your unwavering support. Your support has been and continues to be so absolutely invaluable. Thank you to our advisory board. Thank you for their insights and commitment to the center. To the best teams, Sonal, Corey, Lynn, Aaron as an acting director as well. Thank you. We couldn't have dreamed of a better dream team. To the Beeck team, to the Beeck Center team, amazing group of people and fun people as well. They're working hard, they're super committed, and they're a fun group of people. To the fellows, thank you for entrusting us with your credibility, your reputation, and your amazing, amazing knowledge. And to our partners, our funders, our partners with whom we've been able to create impact at scale. To you and to all of those people that in one way or another have contributed to the success of the center. Thank you.
Alberto, thank you so much for that incredible introduction, and to the president as well. I did want to say when I started, Corey gave me a good piece of advice, which was that Alberto, Olga Maria, and Carl are the best founders you could possibly ask for. And I think you heard a little bit of why that is in Alberto's remarks today. But I do want to call out what I think makes them so unique, which is what Alberto described, which is their willingness to experiment. So from the start of the Beeck Center, the goal has been impact, and they recognize that you have to try a lot of different things in order to achieve impact, and that those tools are going to change over time, and that what they have done is given us at the center the flexibility to try different things and to really dig in on the tools when they seem to be most effective. So it has been an absolute joy. Corey was right. Corey's usually right. It has been a joy working with all three of you. I appreciate you acknowledging how wonderful the team is. And we do have a lot of fun. I think everyone who's ever worked with me, that is a hallmark of what I like to bring to work, because we do a lot of very serious things. That doesn't mean we have to take ourselves too seriously. So good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces and also to see some new ones. I do want to give you all a tip as we head out for drinks after these remarks in this panel. You should ask Olga Maria, Carl, and Alberto the role that a volcanic eruption played in the founding of this center. I think it's a little bit of a unique part of our origin story. And I do want to thank Bob and President DeGioia. I appreciate that they were discerning, but I am glad that they said yes, and that the center has been here for 10 years. So as you may have heard, I'm Lynn Overman. I'm the executive director here at the Beeck Center. I have been here just over 1 year, so a 10th of our time here at Georgetown. And I will say one of the things that drew me to the Beeck Center, I have actually been aware of the Beeck Center since it started. I knew Sonal at the White House. I was a little envious when she came over and got this job because it seemed like a pretty sweet gig, and she was right. But I think the thing that has been consistent over time, even as we have experimented with different approaches, has been the caliber of the subject matter experts who have joined our center and the caliber of the students who have worked with us over time. And you certainly heard that in Trinisa. We have several other students here today. I encourage you to speak with them. The Beeck Center, by design, is a uniquely symbiotic environment, bolstered by the support, vision, and service-driven mission of our academic home here at Georgetown. It is a unique place. I think its mission is unique, and it is quite conveniently located close to many of our national policymakers, which makes it handy for them to come visit us, and for our folks to then go work in government. The Beeck Center is a place where experts with deep experience in their fields work, experiment, and innovate side by side with students, each bringing their creativity, passion, and insights to bear on some of the most challenging problems our nation, and indeed our globe, faces. When added all together, this recipe for success has allowed us to catalyze networks, produce incredible research, advocate for effective and equitable policymaking in the modern age, and build a career pipeline for tomorrow's innovators. And I do think that last piece, and I know this is something that Alberto and Olga Maria and Carl and I have been talking about, we need as many people as possible, and particularly the bright minds that are coming through Georgetown, going into this field. So civic technology has been around for 10, 15 years. We've been at it for a while. We need this next generation to come up behind us, take the reins, and to bring their own fresh ideas. Because I'm a little tired, I don't know about you. It's been a long time. But we know that the world is going to be a better place when we have more of our students coming into government and bringing this unique set of skills. So I do want to, of course, turn to our panelists and introduce our amazing colleagues here. Robin Carnahan, who I have had the pleasure of knowing for some time, is the administrator of the General Services Administration. A career public servant, Administrator Carnahan previously served as the Secretary of the State of Missouri and founded and led the state and local government practice at 18F. More recently, she served as a fellow at the Beeck Center from 2020 to 2021, which is obviously the brightest spot on her resume, and helped co-found our state software collaborative. Ra Mashariki, who I've also worked with for a long time since you were in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Is the Director of Data Strategies at the Bezos Earth Fund. Previously, he worked at the Global Director of the AI Lab at the World Resources Institute, Head of Machine Learning at Urbint, Fellow at Harvard Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation, and the City of New York's very first Chief Analytics Officer. He was also a Beeck Center Fellow from 2020 to 2021. I'm sensing a theme here. You work with us, you go on to great things, working on data projects. And then Alberto Rodriguez Alvarez is a senior program manager working with the Public Interest Technology Program at New America here in DC. Previously, Alberto served as the international advisor to the National Digital Strategy Office of the President of Mexico, as well as an international advisor to the Digital Government Unit at the Ministry of Public Administration in Mexico. He served as a student analyst at the Beeck Center from 2019 to 2020 while earning his master's degree at the McCourt School. So obviously, when you work at the Beeck Center in any capacity, you go on and do big, great things in government. So thank you so much for being here. First, I'd love to set the stage for folks in the room and give them some more context in the incredible work each of you accomplished while at the Beeck Center. Can you all share a favorite memory or an impactful moment that stuck with you from your time with us? And I'll start with you, Administrator.
Well, thank you very much, and to Olga and Mr. Beeck, thank you so much for doing this and being so visionary. I see Kevin back there. Thank you all from Rockefeller, Gates, others who invested in this project. I'm a public servant. I've been in and out of government and in business all my life. When I was Secretary of State, it was very clear that government is basically a service delivery business. And if you can't make that work, you're not doing your job. And people expect it to be digital today. Mm-hmm. And so I just saw over and over failures in that and these gaps in delivery. And the Beeck Center was a place where we could come together and talk about how to do that better. It was nobody's job to fill that gap. When you're in one of these government jobs, it's your job to work for the people you're working for, not to figure out how collectively to make this whole system more efficient and how not to reinvent the wheel over and over again. But because we were here and because we were able to think about how similar the problems were and the interaction of a citizen and someone in government, we were able to come up with ideas that are able to stick. And I just want to, my favorite thing is the direct impact of the work we did, even just during a year or two at Beeck, to what's happening today. The pandemic shone a great spotlight on failures of digital services. We all saw that. Both people who deserved benefits and things, they needed it, didn't get it, and people who were fraudsters did get it. Mm-hmm. We all saw it. Billions of dollars lost. One of the biggest problems was in unemployment insurance. At a time when this was skyrocketing, people weren't able to get access to these benefits. Why? Because these systems that interacted with people were terrible. They were ancient, they hadn't been invested in, and they just didn't work. A direct result of the work we did here at the Beeck Center about how you use collaboratives to build software to solve common problems across states is now being deployed at the U.S. Department of Labor. They got $2 billion to do this kind of modular development of software that can be reused by states. It's a direct result of the work that we did here. I just heard last week from Waldo Jake, with my colleague who I was doing this work with, that the Council of State Governments has decided to take the approaches that we developed here at the Beeck Center to go off and do licensure across states. They do interstate compacts on everything. And so I just wanted to throw that out to say some of these things take time. Mm-hmm. But when you have the time to think about an idea that is scalable and have the space to be able to target the places where you know you can make progress, it happens. And I don't know how long ago I was here. Where did it say, 21?
21.
So in the last 3 years, we've just seen this take off. And you talked about the impact on people. It's profound. Mm-hmm. So you should feel great about that. And all the funders in the room, you should feel great about that too. So that's my favorite anecdote.
Excellent, thank you. And I will just...
Can I get that data?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Aaron continues to work with DOL
Right.
and NASWA on modular contracting.
I know. Isn't that cool, Aaron?
He
It's
can
unbelievable.
never escape it.
I know. It's great.
Amin, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I hope I don't have to go after the administrator every time.
All right, I'll flip it. We'll mix things up.
Not that it's any easier going after you, Alberto. One, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I tend to think about things in a very simple way. I have an 11-year-old, so he helps me sort of keep my thoughts very clear and simple. And his favorite movie / my favorite movie is coming out with a part 2, In and Out. Mm-hmm. And when I wanted to answer this question, I thought about how do I think about that? When I started as a fellow here, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think I actually physically came here once or twice before we all had to go home. I think what struck me the most about my time here was, one, how Corey was the leader at the time. We looked inward, and my son at the time, his school, he goes to this amazing private school in Baltimore called Gilman, and they really focused on social emotional, right? They said put academics to the side, let's focus on social emotional. And I saw the Beeck Center with the students, with the fellows, with the staff, really focus inward and say, let's take care of our people. Let's worry about us as a family. And so I thought that, and this was important because these things helped sort of craft my lens for how I traveled through the pandemic. And then the second was, and this is something that I think also Corey spearheaded, was that I think it's called the U.S. Digital First Responders. And so then it was also, let's look internally and protect our people internally, but then let's also now face outward and see what can we do to help? How do we bring some of the smartest people that we have here to bear? I remember I have a good friend of mine, he worked with me in New York City, but at the time he was at the state technology. I think it was like the deputy fancy title. He said, do you know these folks at the Beeck Center? They keep calling me and asking me if I need help with our New York State services. And I said, well, you should take them up on that. And so I think that really struck me and helped sort of create the lens from which I saw the pandemic. One, how do you focus inward, make sure we're healthy, our social, emotional are taken care of, but then at that point, then how do you focus outward and help and tag in and be helpful? And so I think that was really important from my time at the Beeck Center.
That's fantastic. You did a great job. I just want to, before I let Alberto respond, I do want to amend a little bit of what Alberto said about our international engagement, because he talked a lot about us sharing with other countries the things that we've learned. It's also what we have learned, and Aaron and I had a very interesting meeting with a team from Kazakhstan. We're learning from other countries. there are a lot of places that are doing things very differently from us that could very much impact how we do things better, faster. We've been leapfrogged in some places.
Yep.
And so I think we've gotten very adept at working with our status quo, but there's a lot of really positive examples out in the world that we're also trying to bring back and convince folks in government that perhaps they should look elsewhere as well. So Alberto, would love to hear your favorite experience from Beck.
I think I would summarize it as being starstruck every second that I was in. I mean, you've all heard the names. I got to work with Corey. I had an impromptu in the middle of the pandemic over Zoom, third week, and we were doing a podcast with Robin Carnahan where I'm learning her story from her own experience. For me, it was coming into a place where I could learn, but I could also bring all the experience that I had. And the things that I was learning at my Master's in Public Policy program, I got to use them directly. And even sometimes do it the other way, because 1 or 2 times I actually went to a professor. It's like, hey, we're doing this at the Beeck Center. It's actually kind of cool. You should put it on the syllabus, and they did. So it was like being at the forefront of this digital service delivery ecosystem. And from a personal level, I can't look at my professional development in the U.S. without thinking of how many mentors I had in the Beeck Center. All the way from I am not a native English speaker. Every little thing that I learned made both my academic experience and my professional experience so much better just for being here. And the last thing is, I always think about this is something that my grandmother used to say. It's you plant your seeds and then you pick them up. I got to be a part of that planting process in U.S. policy. And now I'm seeing it flourish. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing, because I can tell that story the artificial intelligence executive order. Yeah, I remember when we were talking about that, and it wasn't there, and it wasn't as far as it is now. So being a part of, indirectly, of the political history of this country, it's something that, maybe other schools have it, but none with mentors that actually treat you like a peer.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. That's a great pivot. So we often throw around the phrase civic technology, and we talk about it as an emerging field. It has been around for a while. We've learned a lot when we were defining our work in the larger field of social impact. And I will say it was entertaining to hear that one of the things that we experimented with was blockchain, because I was thinking, well, so did everybody. Still working on it. It's out there somewhere. But I'd really like to dig in with all of you around what you think civic technology actually means. And Robin, I will start with you, and then I'll go to Alberto, so Alman gets a break.
What does civic technology mean?
Yes.
Look, my shorthand for all of this has, for a long time, been we have to make the damn websites work. In everyday life, everybody expects to be able to do their business and interact online and digitally, and then they go to government and it is a mess and they can't do any of those things. And what does that do? It just undermines trust in government's ability to deliver. So when I think about all this, it never really is about technology foundationally, it's about trust. And how can we as people in government build trust? And you do that by making government work well for people, and that means meeting them where they are, and today where they are is online. And so there are lots of examples of when that hasn't worked well. We all remember healthcare.gov and that mess where the president's signature policy agenda was viewed as a failure, not because of the policy, but because the damn website didn't work. Mm-hmm. So there were lots of lessons. There are people in this room that learned some of those the hard way about what not to do, how to do that better. I don't know if any of y'all remember during the pandemic when the Postal Service was going to be giving out the COVID tests. Mm-hmm. Anybody get a COVID test from that? Sure. Yeah, did. Anybody? So here's my funny story there. So they had learned that what you don't do is have everybody do it on the first day, right? Because then things crash. but to like roll it out slowly. And so we had gotten the URL to get this thing ordered, and I called my mother, who was 85, 89 years old, said, "Mom, go to this URL, get your COVID test." And she's like, "Oh, no, you please just go do it for me." And I said, "No, Mom, go. It's going to be simple. Just go." 90 seconds later, I get a call from my mother saying, "Wow, that was simple. Wow, that was a well-designed website." And then the zinger of, "Are you going to make all the websites work that well?" Like, that was now the new expectation on how these things should work. So I tell you that to say, like, it's possible that government can deliver well. That is what I think civic technology is a technology that is a tool that helps us get where we want to go. And another great example of one that's going on right now is a collaboration with the U.S. Digital Service Team, our folks at 18F, the folks at IRS, on a thing called Direct File. And I don't know if y'all have read about this at all, but it's basically a free online tax filing system. Poof, what an idea, right? That we make it easy for people to pay their taxes, and they don't have to pay somebody to figure out how to pay their taxes. And so this is being tested right now. And the reviews so far have been incredible, how easy it is to use. So we've learned a lot. We've come a long way. There's a lot to do. But that is what civic technology is to me, is it's delivering for people what they need in their interactions with government, and doing it where they are.
I want to add one little tail to the COVID test story, because I was talking to my colleague at USDS that helped build that website. And it's interesting because I think all of us who've worked in this space recognize that it's not just technology, it's often process and policy. And she mentioned that they were very careful. They wanted to only send packs of 4 COVID tests at a time. And then they managed to grab some COVID tests from, I think, somewhere internationally. And they came in packs of 5. And HHS was panicking because they were trying to re-engineer the process so that they could take one test out. And Natalie said, no. Let's look at the zip codes that have highest family populations and just send 5 tests. And instead of re-engineering the entire process because someone somewhere said we're only sending 4 tests at once, they just shipped out 5 tests, and guess what? They went out, and everyone was happy. And so to me, the combination of the websites, and my other favorite was the student loan application, where one of the reviews was, "It was so easy, I finished it on the toilet." We're not recording this, right, Jessica? Sorry. But those are the kinds of reviews that we seek. But Alberto, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you define civic technology.
From an international point of view, civic technology is also like one of all of the concepts that are out there. You see GovTech, and it's a little bit more on the private side. You see digital service delivery, which is a little bit what the Beeck Center does. We see public interest technology, the thing that we love in New America. But it's different takes for the same issue: how to bring technology into a better place that helps people. And I think that even internationally, and not just from Mexico or wherever we're seeing these examples, it only works when you are focused on the final user. When you're thinking about the communities that deserve it the most, well, not deserve it, that need it the most, and when you are focusing on where to do and where to have a bigger impact. And it's a great example. If we're thinking about the COVID test, it's because we needed them, but we were thinking about, or you were thinking about, how to do it easier for the user. And I am sure there are several ways to attack that problem. If it's through the private sector, with grants, with help from philanthropy, at the end, if we're dealing with the people that are receiving those services, we will find a better way to get to them and to actually make that impact. So that's my 2 cents. And if I may add, yes, you're right. There are a lot of great examples that are out there. We see it in Latin America. We see it in Asia. We see how everything's going. But again, if you look at the examples that work, it's because they're thinking about serving the people first and not about anything on top of it.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, because you've been in both public sector and private sector and now philanthropy. What challenges do you think this next generation of civic technologists and social innovators will face?
Let me see if I can answer the question this way. I think civic innovation and my two co-panelists talked about it from organizational perspective, where I think about civic tech and civic innovation. I think it starts at the personal. And so I think a lot of the challenge is going to be connecting. So the way, for instance, I live in Baltimore, and I think about those students who are from, you guys know Baltimore is sort of known as sort of the butterfly. You have the East and West Baltimore, and then you have that sort of corridor. They call it two kidneys, where it's like the low income centers of Baltimore. But then you have this sort of line right through where Hopkins is here and downtown is there, right? And this is all of the good stuff, and all of the crazy things that happen in Baltimore tend to happen in these kidneys or these butterfly wings. There are a lot of students in those areas that are going to Hopkins. How do we engage those students to use what they're learning at Hopkins to come back into these centers, into these spaces, and then use their civic innovation skills and capability and apply it, instead of waiting for Hopkins to move into these spaces, which we've been waiting for a long time. You see it in Chicago, University of Chicago, South Side of Chicago. You see it all over. That it replicates itself, right? Columbia University, Harlem, so on and so forth. We could go on and on. And so I think when you talk about the personal, how do we really make that connection, starting from the people from those communities who are moving and getting these advanced degrees in some of these elite institutions, but then bringing them back in to engage. And I think that's a non-trivial thing to tackle.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And maybe our 20-year anniversary, we can celebrate on the Capitol campus. We're going to have a large footprint and have many more opportunities to hopefully engage with the community. Administrator Carnahan, what does the future of public service look like? You've been doing this for, I mean, it must just be 10 years, because do you have a message for any students or young career professionals thinking about taking this path?
I think all of us want to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And so if you think about, if that's a starting point, you think about where you can fit in to make an impact on your community and your country and serve. And I really don't think there's a better place to do that than in government. It's a place that impacts people's lives tremendously. It's a place that has gaps right now that we need talent, particularly when it comes to technology, particularly when it comes to how you deliver for people in a new era. And so to me, the future is bright if we encourage people to come in, but government's got to be able to move at the speed of need. And if we continue to have systems that are crunchy and old or hard to hire or all of these things, it's going to be discouraging for people. And so that is the challenge of government, is how do we streamline to react better in the modern age. I will say at GSA that we're spending a lot of time thinking about this. We have lots of different ways to have people come into government. It can be permanent careers, it can be tours of duty, it can be presidential innovation fellows, it can be other things. And so what we're trying to do is create lots of on-ramps for people who want to raise their hands and want to serve. And so again, I come from a family of public servants. To me, it's in my heart that I want to be able to give back to my community. I think that people who are technologists are just as patriotic as anybody who raises their hand to go into the military, but we don't give them options about how to do that. And so that's on us to try to figure out a way to provide entries into service. And I think we're doing a little bit better at that.
Great, that's wonderful. And I will say that one of our digital services network works closely with practitioners in government, and we heard some of us were at a summit this morning where we talked about how government does need to be a little bit better at hiring.
Oh, gosh.
Slightly more quickly. And it was really interesting. There's been some fascinating research that shows that even for technologists who tend to make very good money in the private sector, the salary is not the thing that's keeping them out of government. It is how slow we are at hiring folks. So they are very mission-oriented. We are just not making it easy for them to come in. And also do want to shout out U.S. Digital Corps.
So the U.S. Digital Corps is a team of early career technologists, because one of the things we found was we didn't have a good pipeline for early career talent. We had mid and senior pipelines, but not early career, and it's been fantastic.
It has been.
So thanks for being a part of that.
I believe there's a terrifying statistic that only 3% of technologists in government are under 30.
I don't know, but that might be true.
Okay.
And it is terrifying.
I'm going to have Alberto wrap us up here. So from the very start, the Beeck family envisioned the Beeck Center as a place focused on driving impact through the students who come through our doors every day. Alberto, can you tell us about your time as a student analyst, which you already talked about a little bit, but what influence has our brand of experiential learning had on your career so far?
It's been the core of my professional development since I came out. Actually, when I graduated and when I made the transition from a student to the workforce here in the U.S., it was in the middle of the pandemic. So I had a great opportunity to actually work with the Beeck Center and with my institution, which is New America. And I can tell that even how I shaped documents, how I learned to shape documents at the Beeck Center, kind of shaped how I do most of the work around here, and how I try to think about problem solving from a user-centered perspective. That is something that, even though I worked in government before, it was never a part of how I approached anything. And that thinking about impact and about the people that we want to serve first actually changed the way that I continue to do so. And I love to think that I actually take it a step further. And one of the things that I got the privilege to doing as a student analyst is try to come up with what at that point I called user-centered policymaking. I ended up translating that to Spanish, and now it's being taught in universities in Latin America because it was what was driven from here. Mm-hmm. And it's the ideas that were here. And now,
wow, that's great.
So yes, it's definitely shaped how I think about this work, but also about the challenges that we still need to fix.
That's great. Well, wonderful. I want to thank all of our panelists. I will say, Alberto, you've given me great hope for the future, as has Louisa and our other students. And of course, thank you again to Georgetown and to the Beeck family for supporting all of us. Thank you so much. Thank you.